Hey everybody, it's PJ from Wisconsin Airgunners. Today is time for the part 2 video on the Diana Model 48. Testing a new air rifle is always a good time, especially when it performs like the Diana Model 48. What you're going to see in this video is some sort of over-the-shoulder looks at targets at 30, 45, and then 55 yards with this, a 177 caliber side lever spring action gun. If you haven't checked out the first video, I would ask that you maybe pause right here, go back and check that one out. That was a box to bench video where we took this right off and went right out to shoot, and I was really happy with the results. However, I'm a little bit on the older side of things, and the 48 comes with a really nice set of open sights, but there's a limit to how good I am with plain open sights. If we were talking about, shooting a raccoon or a squirrel, I can certainly make that shot farther away. In fact, let me toss up a picture of a squirrel I shot right here. This was at 15 yards up in a tree. No problems at all short range with the accuracy on this gun. The only limitation is me. So if I'm talking about shooting groups at 45 yards, I don't know that with iron sights I'm really able to do this rifle justice. And I guess that's the question that this video is set to try and answer. How much accuracy or precision can we wring out of the 48 once we've mounted an optic? In talking with the folks at Diana, who were good enough to send this rifle out to me, and who I'm hopeful will continue to send their offerings my way for test and review. But when I was talking to them, I found out that in Germany, they are the distributor for Element Optics. And I had a 6-24 Helix lying around, and I thought, well, it's perfect then. I'll combine these two to see what I can do at longer range. I was a little bit concerned about the heavy recoil force, not so much because I think the Helix can't take it, just because I don't want to trash any scopes, and I knew I was going to be doing quite a bit of continued fire in testing. I learned that Diana makes a Zero Recoil Mount. And the way the system works is that you've got a block that goes right into your dovetail. It has a little stop arrestor, that little pin that drops down, and there are already several holes for that. So depending on where you want to mount the scope, you've got a couple of options. So that block mounts, and then you have two rods that go through this block and a spring in the middle. So if you know anything about springers, one of the points of concern relative to optics is that they don't just have recoil force going back like a firearm does. You actually have a dual recoil, and these scopes, while they're really great, aren't made for sustained fire like that. Now, Element has a really good warranty, and I have no doubt that if this had had a problem and I sent it back, they would have replaced it. I just didn't want to cause a problem. And since Diana makes the mount, I thought, I'm testing out their rifle, I might as well test out the mount as well. I'll be honest, there's moving parts to it, and of course, everything about the scope being locked into place so that everything is repeatable is like everything in the world of accuracy. And so I was a little bit skeptical on, could this possibly work? The reality is, there's no wobble to the mount system itself. It does move forward and back. Let me throw just a little clip in here so you can see what it looks like in slow motion. The mount does exactly what it's supposed to do, moving forward and back, slowing down that energy impulse to the scope, allowing for, you didn't hear me say this, but maybe a scope that isn't Springer rated to be used on a Springer. But it doesn't have any play in it, so they've got the tolerances machined enough so that it moves freely on the track, and the spring and the stop are doing what they need to do to absorb a good chunk of that recoil force without there being any play in it, which would lead to inaccuracy. So let's take you over my shoulder at 30 yards and see what a couple of groups of 5 shots look like.
That is a fight.
That's a pretty solid group.
I was going to say, that's...
I'll take that all day long.
Indeed. I was going to say something after the third shot. And
I was thinking it.
And then on the fourth shot, I really had to bite my tongue because I knew that would jinx it.
I was really impressed at 30 yards from a spring-powered air gun. I don't know like what more you would expect, and I would say that accuracy rivals some PCPs I've shot. I was really excited about those results, so let's go out to 45 yards. I know in this clip you're going to see a little bit of the effects of what I was shooting in. The winds were between 10 and 15 miles an hour, and actually during this group I'll kind of talk over it a little bit, but you're going to see that the wind actually shifted while I was shooting this group. The other thing you're going to notice, because I'm shooting from an indoor position to outside, and I'm using a Tacticam Spotter LR through a spotting scope so that you can see the actual points of impact on the targets, you're going to pick up, or you're going to notice that there's a little bit of mirage in the video. So I apologize for that. There's really not a whole lot I can do about it in filming it this way. I do want you to see that we are really shooting at 45 yards. So let's take a look at that video. This first shot was taken at a point where the wind was kind of quartering towards us. This was, from a weather perspective, sort of an interesting day. The United States was hit by what some people are calling a storm of a generation or something like that. Anyway, this storm was moving into our area, and we had a combination of winds that were coming from the west, so as you look at the video, left to right, but it was also shifting and coming in from the north straight at us. So there's a variety of things coming, and this shot that you just saw, the wind was coming in about 45 degrees at us from the left. Kind of a headwind, kind of a left wind. Just prior to that shot breaking, the wind shifted kind of from that 45-degree headwind to more of a wind out of the west. So you see the pellet come up a little bit because it's not fighting that headwind. The wind fully shifts to about a 15-mile-an-hour gust as this shot breaks. This is just one of those shots you wish you had back if you were shooting in competition. You can see the pellet traveling with the wind as it goes. The wind settles back to maybe 6 to 8 miles an hour. And I do get 2 shots off. I was really happy with the way these 2 shots landed. So let me shut up so you can watch. That just lands exactly where I hoped all these shots would land. And I'm really rushing here to try and capitalize on this same wind because it seems to have settled into a little bit of a lull here. Now, I'm not really one to kind of cherry pick groups, but I know these 3 shots were taken in similar wind conditions. And if you look at just those 3 shots, they're well under a half an inch. And I think that's a truly impressive group, and certainly represents what this airgun is capable of. At that shot, the wind is back to quartering towards us at the bench. And what you can't see, I do have, he's not calling shots for me, but I did have my buddy John, who was watching the wind flags and was able to give me some feedback on what was going on, because I was really concentrating on the target. And the wind just...
I see it, yeah.
Went left. So the 2 groups I shot at 30 and 45 yards, by the time I got done with that, while I would have loved to have pushed that to 55, I just ran out of light. I'm way up here in Wisconsin, and the sun is going down still, before 5 o'clock, so there just isn't all that much time. The next chance I had to shoot out to 55, the temperature had come up just a little bit, but we were still dealing with some wind. This time the wind was directly out of the south, which means the house blocks a lot of it, but it can push around a little bit. You get kind of quartering tailwinds, which are tricky to shoot in. And, you just got to shoot in the weather that you've got. So, well, I am out at my 55-yard backstop. I'm going to be putting up a couple of targets, and today is the day. We finally got a break in what's been, first ice, then snow, then wind. Add to it just miserable cold. And finally got an opportunity to try and give the 48 a fair shot at some long range accuracy. So I'm going to set up the target, get us some data so I can dial a good solution, and then we're going to shoot 5-shot groups to see what the 48 can do at 55 yards with a scope. So you're looking at 5 shots under 1.5 inches at 55 yards. But is it repeatable? Let's take a look at another group. We are headed out to the 55-yard backstop, and we're going to take a look at this 5-shot group that I just shot. You guys have seen it. Doing a bunch of plinking around, a bunch of shots. A couple dropped a little, well, not dropped, but were a little bit low as I adjusted the scope. That's a 5-shot group. Actually 2 5-shot groups there, and that one and that one. This, take that one off, it's from an earlier group, but if you look at what I'm able to bring it down to, that's a little bit of all right. So now you've seen 2 5-shot groups at 55 yards. Remember, this is a .177 caliber spring gun, and we're shooting in real-world conditions. I do have a bench inside, but I am shooting outside where it has to contend with temperature changes and wind and all that sort of stuff. I was pretty impressed with those results, and it wasn't a fluke. That inch and a half is very achievable. Just a bit about shooting conditions. I was using a front leather bag rest, and on the back I was using a squeeze bag. I found that she likes light handling at those longer distances. I found that if I was sort of light on the gun, and by that I mean not like clamped into my shoulder, but light on the gun, and then I pulled my finger back to the stop and straight through, I got much better results. And I did play around with that a little bit. If you saw in the video walking up to the target, a couple others, I was really kind of trying to work to see, how does this gun like to be treated, if you follow me? And that's what I came up with. So before I wrap this video up, I just want to, I guess, point out a few things that I've learned through this experience. Number one, I really like the Model 48. As an adult, my first air gun was a spring-powered gun. I was not satisfied with how it performed. I bought it based on price and a little bit how much power it said it had. I would consider this a reasonably powerful Springer. It's pushing this 10 grain pellet, 10.3 grain JSB at I think it's 860-ish, maybe 870. I think I can throw that number up for you. So it's got a reasonable amount of power. I wish I would have spent more money and gotten something like this right away. I think a lot of people getting into air gunning are looking at what they can get at the big box store in their town or city. The distribution on these rifles isn't such that you're going to see them in a lot of, big box stores. And I think that's a shame, because I think what a lot of people have as their first adult experience with a spring-powered air rifle is frustrating. There is nothing about this air gun that has frustrated me yet. It has performed exactly as it should right out of the box. And with its open sights, it definitely exceeds what I can shoot using this type of sighting system. If you look at the groups I shot at 30 yards with a scope versus what I shot at 15 yards with the open sights, there is no doubt in my mind that this has a level of precision that exceeds this style of optics. And there's probably somebody out there who's going to tell me that they can make all kinds of amazing shots on a regular basis with open sights. Good for you. That's awesome. My eyes just aren't up to it anymore. Hard to get that level of precision that I'm looking for. Now, you throw a scope like the Helix on, not a super expensive scope. It's not a cheap scope, but it's got good turrets, it's got great glass, and it pairs really well with this rifle. And now you're talking about making regular shots out to 45 and 50 yards, no problem. It's a .177, so you're going to have to deal with the wind. it's a Springer, so you're going to have to learn how it likes to be held when it's shot. Those of us who shoot a lot of PCPs, we're spoiled that the PCPs aren't as hold sensitive. Not that they aren't at all, but they're not as hold sensitive as our spring powered rifles. So you'll have to figure out and do a little testing and experimenting to figure out how your rifle likes to be held. And once you got that sorted, you're going to be rewarded. There is something else to consider when you mount an optic. Because the center of the optic is so much higher over the center of the bore, you are going to have to get comfortable either with dialing a scope or knowing your holdover points. The one thing I will say about my experience in shooting this rifle with the iron sights, and this is really where, this is what I want to talk about in this video. Because the iron sights are mounted really very close to over the center of the bore, what I'm able to do with this rifle, shooting at 1 and 2 inch spinners, is basically hold a little bit under at a 15-yard spinner, hold right on at a 30-yard spinner, and hold just a little bit high on a 45-yard spinner. And I can go shot after shot, bang, 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 any order I want, no problem hitting those targets. So if I'm using this purely as a plinker and I want to be able to engage fun targets at multiple distances, I would probably leave this gun as is with the iron sights. If you're looking for a higher level of precision than the iron sights can give somebody with my eyesight, then a scope is the way to go. If you're going to mount a scope, again, my advice on a Springer, look into the Zero Recoil Mount. Diana still produces them. This is a really nice setup. This got me. This is a 30 millimeter tube. The scopes are set for 30 millimeter, but they also give you inserts like a lot of mounts have, so you can kind of neck them down for a 1 inch scope tube. The little like inserts that you put in there are metal. I've never seen that on a set of rings. They're almost always plastic. And I was really surprised when I saw that those on the Zero recoil mounts were actually metal in there. It's a really nice setup, and it's what I'd recommend if you were going to put a scope on this gun. And if I'm going to mount scopes on Springers in the future, hint, hint, got another Diana spring gun, this time an underlever on the way. I would definitely check out this unit. But if you're going to go to the optic, understand that you significantly change the geometry of your optical system relative to that barrel, and it means you're going to have to be more conscious about whether or not or how much you have to either hold over or dial. These are two different styles of shooting. If you're comfortable dialing, figuring out your dope, doing your holdovers, that's probably not any problem for you. If you're new to the sport, that is something that has a little bit of a learning curve, and you'll need to make sure you're expecting that it's going to be something you're going to have to pay attention to. A fun plinker, just being able to shoot shot, different distances, maybe slight adjustments, and still hitting the target. This is a very accurate rifle, and I've been impressed with it ever since it landed here in Wisconsin. Folks, if you have any questions about the rifle, the scope, the mount, any of the work I did in testing, please go ahead and leave a note down in the comments. I will get to those as quickly as I can. I always appreciate when viewers give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hitting that subscribe button would be a big plus. One of the things that's happened here in 2022 is that because a number of you have taken the time to subscribe, comment, and like, and in some cases even share videos, which is really awesome, it's opened up some doors for the channel. One of those doors is this relationship I'm building with Diana, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that none of this would have been possible if not for the opportunities I've had to do some work with Steve of AEAC. Steve's been a great friend to the Wisconsin Airgunners channel and actually is responsible for kind of sending Diana my way. And this is a relationship that I hope will last a long time. They're making fantastic guns, have been for a really long time, and I think I got some pretty exciting stuff coming in the future. In addition to that, if you're interested in seeing what's new this year at SHOT Show, I have made arrangements to be there, and I'm going to be covering some airgun stuff that's happening at SHOT Show. So hit that subscribe button. If you want to hit that notification bell so you can see when stuff comes out. I will be producing stuff as quickly as I can while I'm out in Las Vegas, assuming time permits, and getting information to you about new and exciting stuff coming forward. Thanks for watching, everybody, and until the next video, shoot safe, shoot straight, and we'll see you around.